Hello there, this is Cridical from Cridical Media, just taking a look at the 2025 Deluxe Edition release of Superman Kryptonite by Darwyn Cooke and Tim Sale. And what we usually do at this channel is give you an idea of what to expect if you ever come across these books in the wild. So we go over the exterior, some bonus material, art and plot points, and then a brief review at the end. Now this book, yes, it is unfortunately from the posthumous Darwyn Cooke and Tim Sale. I only say unfortunate because they're no longer with us, both of the creators. But nonetheless, this book, being a reprint, they have tried to do the deluxe edition before. Apparently there was a misprint in the previous one, but at least this one is all good. Not to mention, this is one of the first releases with the new old logo that DC's reverted back to. It's funny, the logo they had from 2016 was like one of the 70s logos. And this was like one of the early, the later 70s logos. Probably, admittedly, I tend to like this one more. But that's all besides the point. But yeah, as the story suggests, Superman Kryptonite, it does collect those Superman confidential stories from the late 2000s, which basically reimagines his first encounters with Kryptonite itself, as the name suggests. But yeah, maybe just before we dive in, maybe just walking around the exterior. Yeah, of course, a prominent Tim Sale cover, of course. Your typical spine design. Not really much going on, but yeah, maybe notable of the new old DC logo there. And I will say a pretty prominent exterior here on the rear, so definitely appreciate that. But admittedly, underneath the dust jacket, DC did go with their, I guess, recent trend of just the straight up black covers with the embossed titling. So nothing really special going on that. At least the spine is detailed as well. But aside from that, in terms of bonus material, surprisingly, not like a large amount. You know, you'd expect with the name Deluxe there'd be a lot. But what we do get here is what I usually love to read anyway, what I'm always looking for. And sure, we get awesome sketch work from Tim Sale, but probably the real star of the show is the interview with Tim Sale as well. So a lot of these are picked up from when, they originally did this in like 2008 or whatnot. So I definitely at least appreciate that they added that in. Not to mention Darwyn Cooke's interviews at the very beginning of the book as well. But yeah, really not much else going on in terms of bonus material here. But anywho, ouch, glue crack, apologies. It is relatively recent. But anywho, in terms of the story and art and plot points, I mean, as mentioned, this is essentially the early days of Superman as the story's trying to cover, where it's like literally the first few months of Superman. So yeah, he's just kind of introduced himself to the world. At this point, he seems unstoppable. But what I like about this narrative is that even Clark Kent himself, even he's not fully aware of how invulnerable he is, how seemingly immortal he might be. Because even his first encounters with the Royal Flush Gang here, like even he's not unsure of like what he can survive and what he can't. You know, he'll get caught up in a fire and he swears that he won't survive it, but he does, and he's equally surprised that he survived it. So I like seeing that vulnerability kind of matched up with the incredible confidence that, Lois Lane and others kind of exhibit throughout the story. I always find that interesting about this narrative is that Superman seems he seems less confident in himself, yet all the characters around him are very assured of themselves. So it's always been something interesting. But they kind of introduced this protagonist here in Tony Gallo, basically a guy who's just starting up a casino in Metropolis, and Perry thinks that he's up to no good. He has like mob ties or whatnot. But it's a lot more serious than that. But as also the name suggests, one thing I really dig about this narrative is how they try to, or at least the way Darwyn Cooke tried to put a personification to Kryptonite itself. So like there are panels, for instance, and then you'll see this green text. It's actually the Kryptonite itself, as though it was a manifestation of a real person. It's actually talking to us, the readers, and how it has this almost poetic kind of symmetry to, how it traveled to Earth and how it's explaining its connection to the Kryptonian and all that jazz. So I really like that angle. There's another book that kind of does that, that deals with like the creation of the atom bomb, where similar idea. Instead of kryptonite, it's uranium that's talking about itself becoming the ender of mankind. It's kind of a similar idea here with the kryptonite, where it's also considering it's the real foe of like what's really about to happen. But as per typical Tim Sale kind of work, one thing I liked about Darwyn Cooke is he almost went with that same Long Halloween feel, where it had that mobster kind of tale built into it. And it really does show, kind of does the backstory of that character, Tony Gallo here. So definitely really brings it home, and also just allows Tim Sale to do more of that, I guess, Godfather aesthetic that he constantly did in other tales. Super impressive with that. But yes, what's a Superman story without Lex Luthor? His characterization in this story is perfect. He's exactly the kind of megalomaniac you were expecting, you know? Just completely cold logic being applied to everything. I love that about him in this particular tale. And yeah, I have to admit, Darwyn Cooke, I wasn't the biggest fan of, you know, New Frontier. I know that's what he's known for a lot. But one thing I never deny about him, he knows his characters. He knows these superheroes very well. And besides, he's also a fellow Canuck, or at least he was a fellow Canuck. Once again, God rest you. But nonetheless, as you're getting a lot of interesting panel designs, and I love these color overlays. That's just one of Tim Sale's like greatest achievements, if you ask me. Yes, it's just perfect thematic, or should I say cinematic qualities that Tim Sale always came with. But yeah, as I kind of mentioned, the story, it's constantly reminding you of how vulnerable Superman can truly be. Because yeah, even here, he's really messed up. He keeps bringing that home, that, you know, he's really starting to come with that realization that he's not necessarily immortal, and yet somehow he appreciates that fact more. He reacts to it in a way that you weren't expecting. So I can't help but end up liking these scenes where he comes back home just to remind himself, to center himself before he goes any further. For those of you returning to the channel, you may know I don't have the largest amount of like Superman books. So when I do pick one up, it's often because there's something evocative or something special about the narrative. This isn't the most action-heavy book, even though some of these panels may make you think otherwise. But I just like the kind of ground that's covered and the kind of manias and understandings that this character can go through, you know? So I just like their whole dynamic that they always manage to do with Superman. Either you tell a great, you know, story that's attaching Superman to our world and making him relatable, or you make him like a god-type character. This book, he feels much more relatable, of course, because it's all about vulnerability, right? But nonetheless, definitely a banger. You can find this book pretty cheap, especially now that it's being reprinted. So I would highly suggest picking it up for a very decent price. But that's just my 2 cents on it, and hopefully you guys get a chance to come across this book yourselves. And with that in mind, I wouldn't mind seeing your comments down below, as always. Y'all folks take care, and enjoy the rest of your day.